Hello guys, it's me Simo Ora, and in this video we're going to talk about an important topic regarding the final battle of Yhwach and Ichigo. And is there really a plot holes in the battle or not? This topic was suggested by one of my Patreons, who is Dylan Vincent. He has given me his opinion with the facts and the reasons that makes him believe that there is 2 plot holes in this battle. And by the way, this is a good chance to thank all the ones who support this channel, either by becoming a membership on my YouTube channel or through Patreon. Thank you guys so much. So the first thing Vincent sees as a plot hole is why didn't Yhwach see himself being subjected to the Yhwach illusion when he met him again in chapter 682, knowing that Yhwach can see the future, especially since the fundamental ability of the Almighty is to see the future. Yhwach sees the future of everything except the Soul King's parts, and on the top of all of this, he can see all the lines of the future and change what he wants in them. So the Almighty's ability should have enabled Yhwach to see that he was going to be exposed to the Yhwach before he even met Aizen face to face. This is without forgetting that one of the abilities of the Almighty is to see the distant future, and everything he sees becomes a knower of its hidden things, and therefore all the power that he sees becomes his ally and cannot harm him. So if we only take this initial concept of the Almighty, we can say that Yhwach shouldn't be effective against Yhwach, like Ichigo's blackness. But even if we say that Kubo relied on the true power of the Almighty, which is to see the future and change it, so Yhwach should have known that Aizen's already activated Yhwach at the place where he was going to meet him. Aizen told Ichigo this in chapter 684. It is true that Yhwach had previously been exposed to Yhwach's effect when he met Aizen in the Mugen, but here we must not forget 2 important points. Yhwach at that time hadn't activated the Almighty yet. Secondly, the effects of the Yhwach was activated when he saw him face to face. And after he left the place, the ability was no longer activated on Yhwach. And as you know, Yhwach's ability works after the opponent enters its range, and this is what Aizen did in chapter 682. And as we said, he prepared the battlefield to use Yhwach on Yhwach. We agree that Yhwach has already become vulnerable to the ability of illusion since he was exposed to it the first time. But in order to activate the ability of Yhwach, you must be within the range of it. And here is the problem. Yhwach was in the Royal Palace, a far cry from Aizen who was in the Soul Society, meaning far from the Yhwach's effect. And yet, Yhwach came to Aizen's place and had no idea in the future that Yhwach would have an effect on him that would lead to his death, and that he knew that the people who attacked him were not real, but it was just an illusion of Yhwach, and that illusion will not affect his almighty power. But what Yhwach did not know was that what he originally have seen was an illusion, and therefore the question arises, why Yhwach didn't see that this would happen to him? And he is the one who can see all future plans and even change them. And through the visions of multi-lines of futures, Yhwach is able to foresee himself within futures since he literally rewrote his own death. And when Hajvald had the Almighty, he foresaw his own death and Yhwach's death as well. So Yhwach should have been able to definitely foresee himself hallucinating from Yhwach before meeting him in the beginning of chapter 682. And so Vincent see this as a plot hole. As for the second plot hole is that he believes that the Almighty, for plot reasons, the Almighty was not activated when Uryu shot the arrow at Yhwach, because Yhwach said, "What is this?" So I will tell you Vincent's ideas and then I will comment on them. So during chapter 684, when Uryu came to shot the arrow at Yhwach had no recollection of what it was, the arrow that was coming at him. He stated, "What's this?" And he should have known what it was if the Almighty was activated. But for some reason, it miraculously wasn't. And even if you disregard that he can change a variety of features to suit him, so why didn't he change the feature to the one one where Yuri wouldn't be able to shoot him. If you say he can't do that, then how do you explain him changing the feature to break Ichigo's Bankai? Not only that, but Yhwach should have been able to foresee Yuryu's actions with the Almighty, regardless if the AIZEN'S didn't work on him, as what some people might think. Because when the Almighty was transferred to HYPNOSIS, he foresaw that Yuri was going to do a betrayal towards them, and even foresaw how he was going to respond to Ichigo in chapter 661. And about the silver arrow has the power to temporarily stop Yhwach's power. That doesn't mean it wouldn't have been visible for Yhwach to see it within the future. It's not something like how he couldn't foresee the Soul King's right arm. And about the ability of the antithesis has absolutely nothing to do with Yhwach's death, it's just a clear plot hole. The reason as to why the antithesis is a counter to the Almighty is only because if Yhwach was to break a sword through the Almighty, Yuri would just reverse the effects to where the sword didn't break. It's like a recovery ability. It's a counter because it can undo any damage inflicted on something that not only Yhwach with his Almighty does, but also what anyone does in general. So guys, that was the words of Vincent. So the thing that I had about this is the Almighty point. Was it activated when Yhwach received the arrow or not? Because frankly the main factor that confirms whether Yhwach has activated the Almighty or not is the presence of the rings on his eyes. And we've seen that in Busby's flashback, and also when Yhwach activated the Almighty after 1000 years, and also when the Almighty moved to HYPNOSIS. He had several rings on his eyes. But when Yhwach absorbed the Soul King and the right hand, his eyes became covered, and this is one of the things that I didn't like. So that you can't tell whether he has the rings on his eyes or not. Because it might seem that one of the signs that Almighty is activated are those spots on Yhwach's body. But sometimes Kubo draws those spots and Yhwach does not activate the Almighty. An example of that is when he was going to fight Ichigo. The spots appeared, but when Kubo focused on Yhwach's eyes, he didn't activate the Almighty yet. And when Yhwach broke Ichigo's Bankai sword, the spots did not appear on Ichigo's body. Therefore, it can be said that to find out if the Almighty is activated or not, we should look at Yhwach's eyes. And Yhwach's eyes, since he absorbed the Soul King, were covered, except in part of Ichigo's fight, and also in this scene. And so I understand Vincent's opinion when he said that Yhwach didn't have the Almighty activated when he was exposed to URYU'S arrow. Or maybe we can talk about that Yhwach had the Almighty activated, but once he was exposed to URYU'S arrow, the Almighty ability stopped working. But if we assume that the Almighty was activated, why didn't Yhwach see Yuryu hidden with the arrow? Knowing that HYPNOSIS was able to see what Yuryu would do when he confronted him, and Vincent said that. And this means that Yuryu is not immune against the Almighty ability. And even if we say that Yhwach got confused with the visions that he saw from HYPNOSIS, this is not an excuse, because as Yhwach himself confirmed, he said that there is no one future, but rather several lines. Meaning that Yhwach is able through seeing all the future lines that that dream is not a dream, but a future reality. So I think Kubo needs to do something about this battle in the anime, because if he did like what was happened in the manga, we will still have the same endless topics about this. So guys, what do you think? Tell me your opinion, and see you in my next video.